start with a word of prayer. That's right. Our Father, as we learn more about how to take care of our bodies, we pray that you may guide us and help us to have understanding. And we thank you for the opportunity of being here this morning. In the name of Jesus, amen. Well, my name is Dr. Eddie Ramirez. I am the Director of Research here for the Netley Clinic. And the topic of today, we're going to be dealing with certain important cycles of the human body. Usually this part of the program is a little bit interactive, so if anybody has a question, feel free to go ahead and ask it. Let me show you a beautiful picture I took. This is the last solar eclipse that happened in Kentucky. Beautiful event. If you have ever seen that, it's something amazing to see that. When the sun is blocked by the moon, you see, like if it was in the evening, you can even see some stars coming up there. Beautiful, beautiful event. Let me give you these addresses for follow-up. I like to give this to people that would like to have further questions and want to follow up some of the studies I'm going to be sharing. You have that Twitter account, which I encourage people to do a healthy lifestyle on transition. And also, I have that address. I'll be sharing a few research. You can find the whole address if you type SearchGate and Francis. A little bit about the DNA. It has the instructions on how to make every single organ in your body. It has a single organ in your body, every single function that happen real time inside a cell. And inside a cell, there is the nucleus. And inside that nucleus, we find the famous DNA. That's how the DNA looks like. Now, anytime I want to activate the DNA, I need to make a copy of it, and I'll explain to you why in a moment. And in order to do that copy, there is a micro machine that assembles and knows how to open carefully that DNA without harming it. Then another micro machine that knows how to make copies of DNA assembles, and it makes a copy of that DNA. That is something that we call the RNA. So once that copy is ready, it now needs to be interpreted. Now needs to go outside. It first needs to identify nuclear center, and now it can go outside of the center of the cell. And outside there have the mechanism on how to interpret this. So there's another micro machine that goes ahead and assembles. And now I need to find the complementary pairs to the top. The top thing is what we copy from the inside of the nucleus. And if you can see in the very bottom, that is the resulting protein that results from interpreting the code that is in the top. As you can see, it's like a recipe. Step by step, it's telling you what to do. By the way, if there's a mistake there, most probably this is not going to work. Okay? It needs to be accurate for this protein to work in the right way. But we haven't finished. Now we interpret this. Now what we need to do, we need to fold this. So there is another micro machine that knows how to fold DNA, how to fold the protein. So again, this process needs to be also accurate. If there's mistakes in the folding, the protein won't work. So very carefully, the right angles are put on that protein. And once that folding is finished, there's still one more thing that we need to do. There is another micro machine that works like a little truck, and it's going to pick up that protein and it's going to take it to wherever is needed. Isn't this wonderful? I mean, the level of complexity of this is amazing. In fact, recently I was taking a refreshing course on biochemistry, and I had some of the top 2 biochemical instructors in that course. And they told us, you know, I don't know if you're a believer or not, but somebody made this, they told us. Somebody had to made this. The level of complexity is so huge. Suppose that you're able to make the book that has the instructions. Well, that's not enough. You need to make another machine to make a copy. That's not enough. You need to make another machine that transports this. That's not enough. You need to make another machine to interpret this. Can you see the layers of complexity? And it's like the illustration they make, like a mouse trap. You know, a mouse trap? You need to have all the elements of the mouse trap in place. If not, the mouse trap doesn't work. You cannot gradually make a mouse trap. It's either all of them are there or it doesn't work. You need to have the little metal thing that is going to go in the middle. You need to have the thing that is going to smash the mouse. You need to have the section where you're going to put the cheese. You need to have the piece of wood. All of them need to be in place, then this works. Same thing happens with this. This cannot be gradually built up. You need to have all the elements or it doesn't work. But anyhow, we're not going to talk about that further. I just wanted to share with you what happens there when we interpret a recipe, what's happening inside the body. So what we know is that many things have an influence upon which of those genes are activated. And on this particular paper, they are proposing that what it has the biggest influence is what? What we eat, isn't it? So be careful. You know, in your home you have something very dangerous that is called the fork. Okay? What you're pinching with that fork, you know, determines in a great sense, you know, if you are encouraging health or encouraging disease in your body. And science has advanced, and now we're coming to the concept of nutrigenomics, which is basically to try to understand what types of things are having an influence on which of those recipes are turning on, recipes of health or recipes of disease. And a lot of that has to do with what we eat. Now, we're understanding now that it's not only what we eat it, but when we eat it. And we'll be talking a little bit about that effect that when we eat does have a big effect on that. So there is a new branch in biology by the name of chronobiology, which has to do with timing and the genes. And inside of us, we have different clock genes. And those clock genes need to have, like at work, do you have meetings? Isn't it that you have meetings so you can be in accord and make plans and so forth? In the same way, we have different clocks in our bodies. And you have what is called a central clock, and you have peripheral clocks. So when you have a lot of clocks at home, what do you do to coordinate them all? Well, you need to check each of them, and you need to make sure that the time is matching in each one of them. So the central clock in your brain needs to help of the other clocks inside of you. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So as Benjamin Franklin says, if you fail to plan, what? You're planning to fail. So in the same way, there is also order inside your body that requires that. So then you have, in the middle of the brain, you have a central clock. And then in every organ in your body, you also have clocks there. So that central clock needs to synchronize those other peripheral clocks. And these are our understanding of disease currently. Our understanding of disease is that when there is desynchronization of those clocks, disease takes place. Okay? That's why it's very important to understand this concept, because if we are not synchronizing our clocks, we are opening the way to disease. And as I mentioned, every single organ in the body has clocks that need to be synchronized, not just once a year like you do at home, but actually every single day that synchronization needs to take place. So there are certain nutrients that have an effect, and that we'll be talking a little bit about that in a minute. Also, what type of food you're eating also has an effect on those clocks, and even things like bright light and so forth. So when there is that problem with the synchronization of the clocks, obesity, metabolic problems can start occurring as a result of that. And one thing that we know that is very well documented is that things like intermittent fasting, we'll be talking a little bit about that in a minute, the advantages of following a good intermittent fasting program that actually helps to synchronize those clocks much better. So if you can see here, there is a certain order when things happen. From things from your blood pressure to the making up of your cholesterol to the ability of the body to go into a deep sleep so that reparation of the body can take place. There is a timing on these things. And when you disturb those internal clocks, you actually end up disturbing the timing of this, and those functions cannot take place correctly. For example, in this published paper, they were trying to see what effect does people that work in rotational shifts, what effect does that have in their health? You know, those people that for 1 week they're working the morning duty. And then next week they're going to put him in the evening duty. And then the other week they're going to put him in the night duty. They're constantly changing that timing. They were analyzing what effect does that changing and disorder has at the level of your health. And what they found out is that those people that were working in those rotational shifts, they actually had more issues with obesity, with type 2 diabetes. And their conclusion was that it was not only the fact that they were changing from darkness to light, but the fact that they were eating at the wrong times. Okay? Remember the little clock that I put there, in which there was a time that things were creating cholesterol. There was a time when you were supposed to go to deep sleep. Well, you are creating disorder in that timing. The functions of the body cannot take place correctly, and secondarily to this, you're going to end up promoting disease. This other one, interesting paper on the ability of the body to deal with glucose, okay, sugar. This is something important in things like diabetes. So those people that were doing this type of rotational shifts, this study was a very good study. It was what is called a crossover study. You start the group doing a certain behavior, And then this same group, you change the behavior so you can see, what type of influence that change of habits and so forth it had. So what they were doing, they were comparing 3 days, those people that were working the day shift, comparing with 3 days those people that were working in the night shift. All of them were healthy. There was no disease in none of them. And what they did, they had this food that they ate with radioactive isotopes. Now, what is that? Well, it's a little radiation, very, very small. It doesn't harm you. But if you have that radiation, when you eat that food, you can see where that radiation goes in the body. And you can see if something goes to the pancreas, it goes here to there, and you can follow up that food, what is happening. And they were trying to see their level of diabetes, what effect that has. And here you can see the summary of what happened. So you can see those beta cells, that beta cell is the cell that you find in the pancreas. That beta cell is the cell that creates and secretes the insulin. And you can see how the function of the beta cell in the left bottom, you can see how those people that were doing that night shift, the efficiency of that beta cell decreased. The beta cell was not doing its job very well. But one worrisome marker there, even more than the total beta cell function, is something that is called the disposition index. This is a very important concept that the average doctor doesn't even know about this. Disposition index is the ability of the pancreas to adapt. Let me explain to you this concept briefly. So you have something that is called insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is when the insulin gets secreted in the body, but it cannot do its job properly. So what the body does, it sends even more insulin in the body in order to compensate for that. And you can see here in this study how that disposition index, that DI, it has a level of 800. Now, you see the sensitivity, it has a sensitivity of 2, and then a 0.4. If it decreases, it means the body becomes more insulin resistant. So when there's more insulin resistance, the body responds by sending more insulin levels. You can see in the AR, it goes from 400 to 2,000. What's the difference? How many times difference is that from 400 to 2,000? It's 5 times. So the pancreas, in order to do the same, to accomplish the same job, had to send 5 times more the level of insulin. And you can see that the DI, the disposition index, stay the same. Why? Because the pancreas was able to adapt. If the pancreas couldn't send that much insulin, that disposition index would have moved. So again, let's come back here to what we were talking about. As you can see, the disposition index on those people remained the same? No, isn't it? The pancreas was having a hard time with that night shift to the point that it was not able to compensate. Now, what happens when the pancreas is not able to compensate? That's when you start getting issues like pre-diabetes and diabetes. Think about it this way. You have a certain amount of insulin that you need for normal function of the body. So if insulin resistance happens, usually because you gain weight, because you're eating the wrong types of foods, because you're not sleeping enough, because you're gaining weight, insulin resistance takes place, so it means that I need more insulin to accomplish the same things that I was doing before. But if the insulin resistance continues, it means I need to send more insulin and more insulin and more insulin. And there comes a point that I cannot send more insulin. That means that's going to start affecting the level of sugar in the body. and the fasting blood sugar is going to start to increase. Okay? Why did that happen? Because there was not enough insulin. Disposition index tells us that these people started developing insulin resistance. Now, when we talk about cycles of day and night, we necessarily need to talk a little bit about melatonin. Melatonin is that chemical that is secreted at night whose function is to help you repair your body at night. Have you ever woken up in the morning after a rough night's sleep and you feel that you are like tired and cranky and so forth? Anybody experience that? If you're a human being, you probably have experienced that. The reason why you feel like that is because that particular night you didn't have enough melatonin in your body. That's why the reparation didn't take place correctly. That's why you're even sore. Okay? That's why your eyes even hurt. Okay? That's secondarily of not having enough melatonin during the night. And the melatonin has all kinds of beneficial effects in the body, from helping you decrease the risk of cancer to also with the function of the blood vessels, with preventing things like diabetes, all kinds of benefits you get by melatonin. I'm going to tell you none, okay? You need to learn to increase the amount of melatonin that your own body is producing, okay? That's what you need, your goal should be, to optimize that. So as I mentioned to you, melatonin has a beneficial effect on all kinds of organs in the body. In fact, people that are going through a process of putting a new organ transplantation, those people with better, efficient melatonin systems in the body are able to handle that transplant much better. And this other one, this animal study showing how things like fertility are even affected if the melatonin levels are not optimum in the body. Let me tell you the good news and the bad news. The good news is I recorded a video about melatonin and I put it on YouTube. It has now 1,200,000 views. Now let me tell you the bad news. It's in Spanish. Now, you can use Google Translate there. It does a semi-good job translating if you want to listen to that lecture. But that tells you that this melatonin problem must be a huge problem, isn't it? By the amount of people trying to get this knowledge. Every single day I get questions here asking people that watch this video, asking about how to optimize that. So even when you are sick, a little bit of prognosis, a little bit that determines your ability to heal has to do also with your levels of melatonin. Very interesting. So not only has an effect on preventing disease, the level of melatonin, but also to help you heal when you are sick. Melatonin is very important for that. And the issue is that many people don't respect their cycles of melatonin. As soon as the sun sets and darkness starts to come in, melatonin levels start to increase dramatically very fast. But we modern human beings are very smart, and we created lights, isn't it, that help us see at night. Unfortunately, those lights discourage the production of melatonin. Why is that? Because melatonin is the hormone of the night. God made it like that. So when it's darkness, you're supposed to go and rest. But we modern humans like to put lights inside our homes at night, and your body thinks that is day. It says, no, it's not time yet to release the melatonin. We need that. And not only that, you even carry with you these devices, okay? As soon as the sun sets, that filter is going to block blue light on your screen. Okay? So in that way, you will harm much less your levels of melatonin. And not only that, in the old days, we thought that only one part of the body made melatonin. Now we know that even your retina inside your eye generates melatonin. Now, what needs to happen? You need to have complete darkness, then the retina can start generating melatonin. And not only that, your intestine, which is called the second brain, because you have the second place in the body where you have the most nervous system, secondary to the next to the brain. The intestine, when there is no food circulating in your intestine, then it secretes a lot of melatonin. But if there is food in that intestine, then that's going to block that melatonin. Some key nutrients that you need to take into account in order to make good melatonin. You need to make sure that you're eating your folate. You know, you eat that in this type of foods like green leafy vegetables, oranges, etc., etc. Vitamin B6, you need to have enough. The richest source of vitamin B6 are this type of red peppers, red and yellow peppers, very, very high in B6. Zinc, magnesium, where you're going to get those if you're eating your legumes. And this is the thing. Many people that have depression have problems with their sleep. And let me tell you why. Because it has to do this with the melatonin. In the day, we have what is called the serotonin. Okay? So serotonin is what makes you feel good during the day. Now, if you don't have enough serotonin, serotonin is what the body will transform into melatonin. So somebody that is depressed has low levels of serotonin. Therefore, at night, they have low levels of melatonin, and that's the reason why they